Let's bring in another voice to help us make sense of the point drops. Mona Mahajan is U.S. investment strategist at Allianz Global Advisors. Mona, you and I have just agreed that the next time, every time tomorrow we hear uncharted territory, uncharted this, we're going to take a shot, okay? That's what we're doing. Because that's what we needed today. Let's talk a little bit about tomorrow. You just heard Kyle Bass said there are going to be some amazing things to purchase on the back end of this. Earlier, Dan Nathan said it felt capitulation-y to him today. Did it to you?
You know, it did a little bit. Look, we've never seen a 10-year yield sub 0.5%. We've never seen Dow down 2,000 plus. What I will say is we're close to 20% down from the recent peak on the S&P, but some sectors like energy, industrials, financials, all down 20% plus. So when we step back and take a look at what's happening, yes, a lot of uncertainty still. What we're watching for is two key things. One, we want to see these cases peak in the U.S., like we've seen them peak in China.
Yes.
And since then, the Chinese asset markets are actually stabilizing a bit. The same may happen here in the U.S. The second thing we want to see, we might have actually gotten just earlier today. We want to see fiscal stimulus in force, not only from a testing perspective, but also supporting our healthcare industry, supporting vaccination development, and of course, supporting our small and medium businesses. That is the core of the U.S. economy. So if we can stabilize on those two fronts, I do think we'll start to see stability in the markets. What I will say is we favor a barbell approach, which we can talk about later as well.
And you just mentioned something that the president mentioned an hour or so ago, and that is loans for small business. Clearly is going to be a part of some financial package that he puts together. He says he's going to work with the airlines, cruise ships, hotels, hospitality, and more. When you have that kind of signal coming from the White House, would you expect that tomorrow will be a better day, an up day potentially? The futures say yes. At least it'll open that way.
You know, it's interesting because right now we know the consumer is the backbone of the U.S. economy, and 70% of GDP comes from the consumer. And what have we been seeing the consumer doing? We're staying home more. We're not traveling as much. And of course, we are avoiding big crowds, et cetera. So I think what we want to see is we want to make sure our small and medium businesses, which are supported by the consumer, are also
So what is that barbell approach that you just talked about? And then I want to get your thought before I go on what areas of the market to you just seem too hot to touch right now?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. So I still think while we're in this period of uncertainty, we have to be cautious in the markets. On one hand of this barbell, we have to continue on the defensive front. That includes areas like treasuries, areas like gold, and even parts of the S&P that are more defensive, REITs and utilities, of course. But if you want to start looking a little bit more aggressively on the other side of the barbell, we still recommend areas of risk assets like consumer staples, healthcare, perhaps even some parts of the Chinese asset classes that we've talked about. Housing is another one that may stand to benefit in a sub 1% 10-year environment.
You put your finger on the oven of energy. You get burned?
I think it's early yet. It'll take a while for sentiment to stabilize. It'll take some time for us to figure out what's happening with Russia, Saudi Arabia, how the U.S. shale players come into this. I will say, over time, we think some of the valuations today are absurdly low. And we can mention some stocks specifically, but there are some names that have gotten cut 50% in a day. And
we have to leave it there. I didn't just like my finger.
Yeah.
I really did. Mona, thanks.
Washing hands.
Mona Mahajan of Allianz. We appreciate it.